you put it in the chat for us, but I want to make sure everybody knows. Feel free to please mute your cameras and your microphones. Feel free to change your names if you would like your name to be discreet or not disclosed. We are recording this session and it will be posted to the Placement Exchange YouTube channel. So I'm going to share my screen. All right, Kirby, can you see? Okay, cool. All right, so, welcome to Self-Care during TPE by the Candidate Development Subcommittee. I'm gonna have everybody introduce themselves real quick, but first I will start. My name is Bailey Adams. I'm a residence director here at Oakland University in Michigan, and I am on the Candidate Development Subcommittee for the TPE Planning Committee.
Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Braswell. I'm a senior associate dean of students at the University of North Texas, and I'm also a member of the Candidate Development Subcommittee for the TPE.
And good evening, everyone. My name is Kirby R. Gibson. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm the Assistant Director of Residence Education at Michigan State University. And I also serve as the chair for the Candidate Development Subcommittee. Excited to have you all with us this evening.
Awesome. Just a really quick overview. We're going to go over some self-care tips, some quick TPE tips, and then open it up to some question and answer for our participants and all of us to ask some questions as we begin. So I will kick us off and then I will hand it over to Rob. Our self-care tip number 1, schedule breaks. So our last webinar, we talked about scheduling interviews and what that looks like actually on the TPE website. So our advice is to add in meal breaks now. You're not going to be yourself if you're hungry. The Snickers commercial, it always makes me think of that. You need time to eat. You need time for breaks before and after interviews. So add a break before and after each interview schedule. This will help avoid rushing in between interviews or having back-to-back interviews. A lot of the questions that we've gotten have been, what do we do when we get back-to-back interviews? Do we go straight to the table? So on and so forth. We advise not letting that happen and adding those breaks in now. But if you do end up having to have a back-to-back interview, you can let your employers know, I need to hurry for this next interview, or I'm going to be a minute late for this interview. That's okay to share. And then don't forget, you need sleep. You don't need to interview all day. So if you want to block that you don't have any interviews going on for the last hour of the day or anything like that, you can add that in there as well.
Sorry. And our self tip number 2 is make time to eat. Bailey kind of mentioned before, planning those breaks and having time to eat. So make sure you're planning out your day. If you're a person who enjoys breakfast, making sure that you're getting that breakfast that morning to get your day started. Austin is full of options. So prior to attending TPE, you can kind of plan out your meals for lunches or dinners, breakfasts, things like that. Searching on the website or just Googling and looking up through Austin, see what kind of options are available in Austin. There's a plethora of options as I've been to several conferences in Austin, so food is unlimited. The conference center itself, where TPE is hosted, usually has vending machines or pop-up shops. And so if you know that you want to get like a snack, things like that, there's also water typically available through different water stations while you're at TPE, which is very important to make sure that you're staying hydrated and making sure potentially bringing a reusable water bottle so that you can carry your water with you. But also there's pop-up shops that typically have lunch items or breakfast items available in the actual conference center where you don't have to necessarily leave the conference center. And if you are a person that you know you like to snack or you like little things to really just eat on throughout the day, and you know you're having a busy day, you can always pack some granola bars or some easy snacks that you can have accessible in your your bags or portfolios, things like that. Some little snacks that you can just snack on really easily.
If you can fit snacks in your wallet, you can.
Well, my wallet is big enough for snacks, so IBSOL. But again, just make sure you're staying hydrated. There will be a plethora of water stations throughout TPE. So just making sure that you have your water bottles where you can fill up your water and stay hydrated throughout the day. And of course, different institutions give out different types of swag. So if you forget a water bottle, you'll probably end up getting one through different institutions that you're meeting with, or there may be some available there, or you can go to a local store that's pretty close to the hotel to pick up that water bottle if you choose to use a reusable one. And our favorite tip, as we know, you'll be there interviewing, or your goal is to be interviewing. As you're going on your snack breaks, lunch breaks, things like that, just a little tip to maybe avoid onions and garlic, unless you have some gum later that day, to kind of stay fresh and on your toes throughout the day while you're having those interviews, and just avoiding, and just staying fresh. Bailey?
All right, self-care tip number 3, take time to write notes. So a lot of folks will travel with a Padfolio, like Rob mentioned, or a wallet if you can fit notes in there too. But taking notes after interviews, writing down how the interview went, what your first impression was, who did you meet? On the interview teams, there's usually a lot of individuals that they bring with them, ranging in different professionals, mid-level professionals, upper admin, directors, and things like that. So who did you interview with? What are your next steps, your first thoughts, and then are you planning to write a thank you note? As you are interviewing back to back, or you're taking that time to have all these interviews with these institutions you've spent a lot of time researching, you want to make sure to write down those notes and keep up with everything while you're in the moment. You're going to stress yourself out a lot more if you wait until later and forget half of the things. So our self-care tip is take time in between interviews and make sure you're taking those notes when it's fresh in your mind.
All right, so tip number 4, practice positive self-talk. We know that sometimes TPE can be stressful as people have several interviews, and some may go better than others and things like that. But we want you just to remember throughout your time at TPE, practice positive self-talk. Really just reiterate how great you are, how great of a candidate you are, how prepared you are for your interviews, and continue to have those conversations with yourself. This is the one time that we say it's okay to talk to yourself. Have those positive self-talks. And, prior to going to TPE, you may need to practice, as some people it doesn't come as easy for everyone. I'm a person where I like to hype myself up. And so I try to have those happy endings, talk to myself about when I get this job, or I interview so great, I know I'm getting this second round interview, or I can't wait to see what second round interviews I have because I know I did great in my interviews. And so just having that positive conversation will also reflect in your interviews, being that you're positive, talking to your employers, they're going to know that you have that positive mindset, because for me, when I talk negative to myself, that reflects in my demeanor and it takes away from my energy. So having those positive conversations re-energizes me as well. And we think that that's something that would be really beneficial as you're going through the TPE process, to re-energize yourself, because talking to different employers over a period of time, we know that can be draining, but we want you to be positive and have those good conversations with yourself, and choose to focus on those thoughts that make you feel better, even if it's a little bit. You did great on your last interview. The first one may not have gone so well, but the next one, you knocked it out the park. Think about that. Think about how great you'll be once you get to that place, or how great you did in that interview. You can't wait to meet with that institution again. So just thinking about those positive thoughts. And then lastly, get a hype song. While you're waiting in the candidate workroom, if you have your AirPods or wireless headphones, have a song that's going to hype you up before you go to the interview area. Like for me, the last time I went to TPE, and this might date me, I had an iPod. I had an iPod, but Aloe Black was a song that I had. So before every interview, I played I'm the Man. And in my head, I just kept singing, I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man. But it was a good song, and it hyped me up. It got me excited before every interview, and it boosted my confidence. Prior to that, I was really struggling, and that was a tip that I got from a mentor while I was at TPE, to have those positive thoughts, find that song that's going to hype you up and get you excited about your interviews. And I think that's something that we have to really think about, not psyching ourselves out and really hyping ourselves up to make sure that we are being our best person. And so just making sure that's re-energizing you and you're good to go while you're there at TPE.
All right, self-care tip number 5, check in with a friend. So if you came with a group, we know a lot of folks come with their cohorts when they're coming in with as graduating grads or grad assistants. You may come in with a group, so check in on each other for support. I always got the recommendation from my peers and mentors to not tell each other about all your interviews so you aren't being each other's competition, but check in with them, see how everybody's doing. Find a mentor or coach on site. We're going to have a lot of folks helping with round tables. A lot of employers come to coach and come to give advice. So find somebody on site that you can speak to. Chat with the TPE Candidate Development Subcommittee. It's us. Come see us. We're here to help and we want to know how it's going. Our dream has been to get to TPE and help you guys find your next step. So come chat with us, tell us how it's going, debrief with us. We'll be there the whole time. And then check in with the support group too. So a lot of you are going to have your cheerleaders, your moms, your dads, your significant others, your friends, cheering you on and being your backboard and your support back home. So make sure you're checking with them too. That's what those breaks are for. That's why we recommend that you put in those breaks and that you have lunch breaks or time at the beginning and the end of the day that you can check in and update everybody with how much you are the man and how much you are doing good throughout TPE. So check in with folks, find your support group, and it'll go well.
Okay. Tip number 6. We get it. You will be stressed at TPE, but we don't want you to be deprive yourself of fun. We understand that you are there because you are on a mission. You're soon to be grad and you want a job. We get that. But we also want you to take care of yourself and still make time to have some fun while you're there. You know, throughout that time in the workrooms and while you're waiting in interview sessions, you're probably going to meet a new friend. You know, make time to grab dinner with them. Maybe explore Austin. Austin has a lot to offer. So be able to, prior to going to TP, kind of look at some of those sightseeing areas, some of those things that you need to see, you want to see, so that you're able to do that after your sessions or after your interview days, so that you can kind of take your mind off of interviews, so that you're not so stressed out. But I understand you also need to do your prep work for the next day, but still make sure that you're making that time and making an effort to have some fun. Stressing out and focusing on what isn't working isn't going to help. So having that fun is kind of getting your mind off of that. But again, like Bailey said, talking with your support group and things like that, that'll be your time to focus on that and kind of regroup and regain your focus. And then use this time to kind of go out, have some fun, enjoy yourself while you're in Austin, because technically, how do you say that? Interviewing on a vacay. Have some fun, relax, and decompress. And so that's really our tips. Our 6 tips of self-care for you. We do, and now we're going to kind of transition into just tips in general about TPE. But if you all have questions, I see that some people are posting the questions in the chat box. So continue to do that. At the end, we'll be able to kind of go through and answer some of those questions, as well as answer questions that you all provided on the sign up link as well.
All right, making sure we're on the right slide here. So our first TPE tip, familiarize yourself with the convention center. So on the TPE website, there's a lot of different links and things like that to say where the convention center is actually located. Hopefully you have your flights and your hotel figured out so you know where exactly you're going. If anyone has seen the chat, Kirby was mentioning that there will be lots of signs and directional signs about where the candidate development workroom is or the candidate workroom is and where we're going to be located. But take a look around, make sure you're reading your signs and taking time to understand what the place is before you just jump right into interviews.
And then our next tip is to attend a TPE orientation or the TPE sneak peek. Orientation will help you get oriented, kind of figure out where those mailboxes are, where the workrooms are, and just really to kind of see the flow of the convention center so that when you show up for your interviews and things like that, you will be prepared and know where you're going because things may be spaced out. Some things might be upstairs, some things might be downstairs. And also the TPE sneak peek or first look, as Kirby has stated, is your chance to kind of see what that convention center looks like, what it's set up like in the interview spaces and things like that. Kirby, would you be able to expand a little bit on what that first look looks like?
Sure. So the first look is consider it like a big kickoff for TPE. And so we want to officially welcome you to Austin, to the on-site experience, et cetera. And so you'll have the opportunity to hear from some of the presidents of our partner organizations, as well as get a feel for what the next few days are gonna look like. And so there's specifically one for candidates and then there's specifically one for employers. And so you'll get to hang out with the three of us as well as some of our other staff and hear us talk more about how awesome TPE is and how excited we are to have you there, which will immediately be followed by what we're calling a job fair networking kind of thing. And so you'll have an opportunity to actually go inside of the interview hall. And so we recognize oftentimes the first time that candidates see the interview space is during their getting ready for their first interview. And so to help ease some of that anxiety that you may have, we'll allow you all the opportunities to actually walk around the interview space and get to interact with employers and other folks. So real good times to be had.
Thank you, Kirby. All right, TPE tip, breaks, and more breaks. I'm pretty sure we've brought up breaks about 3 or 4 times already in this this webinar, so that's why we put it like this. We also talked about it in our previous webinar when talking about scheduling interviews. So make sure you take breaks. Take time to actually leave the convention center and get some fresh air. Hopefully the weather is nice, knock on wood, and you can get some sunshine on your face. I know with this 20-degree weather we're having in Michigan, I'm looking forward to that for sure. But take some breaks, go get some water, get some food. Like we talked about, go out on a night on the town. Like Rob said, it's interviewing on a vacation. Make sure you're taking time to decompress and turn your interviewing mode off for a couple of minutes so that you can recover long enough to come back and do it all again the next day.
All right. Save time for second round interviews in your schedule. And so this is an important tip because right now, some of you are probably scheduling interviews for the first day or the first couple of days, but make sure that you're leaving space on some of those latter days so that employers are able to schedule those second interviews with you because, there's one schedule, the Thursday through Saturday. And so typically that first day, there's a lot of those first round interviews. And after you interview with employers, if you're having first round interviews at TPE, because I do recognize that some first round interviews happen prior to TPE, but if you're having your first rounds at TPE, some of those employers may schedule a second or a third for you while you're at TPE. And so you want to have that open space on your calendar or on your schedule so that those employers who are very interested in you are able to get on your schedule and schedule those interviews with you. Typically, they may send the interview sheets with you for you to go and schedule and things like that, but you just want to make sure you have the space so that you can take the time to meet with them. So typically, those second or third round interviews can last anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. All interviews at TPE are typically 30 minutes to an hour. If they're longer than that, that would be communicated. But typically, once they ask you to schedule an interview, they'll tell you whether you need to do a 30-minute interview or an hour interview. So you will know once you go to the, I can't remember the name of the space, but the candidate interview table.
Interview scheduling.
Yes. See, I made up a good name, candidate interview table, interview scheduling, all the same. So they'll be able to help you with that, or some employers may also interview or schedule with you through the TPE app or through the TPE site. So that's just making sure you have that space, because they'll be able to see kind of your schedule as well.
All right, user resources. I feel like this is, again, another one that we are saying over and over again, but sure you're checking out the TPE website. We've got a blog up there with several blog posts from the last few TPE committees, the planning committees. Rob and I were looking at one before we were making this presentation. That's 25 tips to get ready for TPE. So more tips than what we were able to provide tonight. A lot of it we pulled from there too. Checking in with mentors, with friends, speaking to your supervisors and their supervisors even to say, hey, what tips you got before I go, making sure that you have that support system in place. And then again, speaking to us once you're on site. We're going to have a couple of roundtable discussions and things like that once we're on site for when those questions do pop up of, I got an on-campus, what do I do? Or I want to turn down the second round interview, what do I do? And things like that. So we will be there to be a resource as TPE is happening and make sure that we can provide as much help and assistance as we can along the way. So don't forget, you are not alone in this. We've got a whole team there to help you, and you've got peers and everybody else behind you to help you get through this. That is our last TPE tip. So we're going to turn it over to some questions. I know if
So there was a question asked earlier around exploring Austin and like how should folks be able to dress while they're exploring. So should I dress business casual? And so this piece around wanting to still be on and present themselves, their best self in and outside of the conference center and interviews. So thoughts about that? I got thoughts, but I'll let y'all say what y'all got to say.
Go ahead and share your thoughts, Kirby. We'll you.
So really good question, right? And so yes, you definitely want to be on when you are participating in TPE or even attending NASPA, because you never know who you may encounter, right? But also that doesn't mean that you have to feel as though you have to be very like on point, right? And so if business casual is what makes you feel comfortable, sure. But also like if you want to wear some jeans and a t-shirt to go explore, also welcome that as well. We don't want you to feel as though you can't be comfortable and can't also be the word that we love to overuse in student affairs, your authentic self. But really want folks to feel as though that you can show up as who you are outside of the interview space. What we mean by being on is that like if you were to see an employer like outside of the interview hall, like don't act like, we don't want you to do anything like that would misrepresent who you are, right? So like definitely probably wouldn't want to be caught like drinking to like out of proportions in a space, or if you like see an employer, but let's say you weren't necessarily like thrilled about the interview or the institution, like don't be weird or make awkward eye contact or turn them off or anything like that, right? Like the same way is how folks are gonna like show up and do their thing. We want you to feel as though you can do your thing, but also just still be cognizant of who is around you. Like for example, like when you're in interview, like not interview, sorry, this is the thing that goes to the elevator. When you're in like the elevators or in public spaces or things like that, you want to be cognizant of like how loud you are maybe speaking about like an interview experience or who you've been to and things like that. And so more so aware of your surroundings, but don't feel as though you have to be afraid and can't be who you are. Like live your best life, enjoy yourself, have fun. And so yes, if you prefer casual, do the casual. So yeah, that's my take.
I definitely agree. I don't think I have anything else to add. Rob, you got anything?
Oh, Kirby hit it all. She covered all three.
Good.
Awesome.
Another question, I'm reading the questions for y'all if that's okay.
That works.
Is it common for people to have a messenger bag or something for snacks, water, etc.?
In my experience, yes, absolutely. I have seen folks bring a little rolling suitcase bag thing, not like a whole suitcase, but like one of those rolling office bags. I've seen folks bring backpacks, messenger bags, the whole 9 yards. I know when I personally came, I had like a tote kind of purse. It was like yay big so that I could fit my laptop and had folio in it. But for snacks and water bottle, everything like that, everyone knows you are there for the day. Not everybody's hotel is going to be connected to the convention center or close by. So pack what you can, bring what you can. Obviously, don't bring everything with you. You don't need all of your luggage and supplies, but for sure, bring a bag. Bring what you're going to be comfortable with. If you don't think you can handle a backpack for your 9-hour day or whatever it's going to be, consider that. But I would say definitely bring a bag.
Absolutely. What Bailey said that was my experience as well. I've been in TPE 3 times as a candidate. And all 3 times people had their messenger bags or just bags in general where they have portfolios, laptops, thank you cards, sanitizer, just the necessities that they need for the day. Because similar to what Bailey stated, some people are in like Airbnbs, hotels, things like that. So once most people are at TPE, they're there for the day, especially if they've Ubered over. They're not Ubering back for a lunch break and then Ubering back, things like that. So people have those bags, and employers are very understanding and know the reason you're there, you're interviewing, and know that you have those items because employers are there all day as well. So they probably have their own bags with snacks and water and everything packed up as well. So they fully understand that expectation.
Another question is about, would you recommend changing clothes for socials?
That's a tough one. For me, I've always gone to socials, more business casual. I haven't necessarily gone to the socials in like my full business suit, so business professional. Typically gone in like a polo and jeans, or I've gone in slacks and a polo or slacks and a button up to kind of still look presentable. Not saying that people aren't presentable who are in like t-shirts and things like that, but I want to provide. For me, it was a part of providing a lasting impression when I went, and making sure that I was talking to everyone, and making sure that I was meeting everyone that I knew worked for that department. Talking, I'm an introvert, so socials take all of my energy, so I have to be that extrovert. So really, for me, TPE is about being on as an extrovert. So it's like extra draining at the end of the day for me. But at that social, I'm an extrovert. I know everybody. Hello, how are you? My name is Robert. Nice to meet you. Let's have a great conversation. So things like that. So just making that lasting impression. I think, like Kirby said earlier, being on with that conversation is more important than what you're wearing. But typically people are able to recognize your clothes first, but being able to present yourself well through that conversation is what's most important in my opinion.
I agree with that all. The only other 2 things I want to add is it depends on the schedule. So if you're going right from an interview to a social that takes place 5-10 minutes later, stay in your interview clothes. Don't bust your butt trying to get back to wherever you're staying. You absolutely can show up in interview clothes. No one's going to question that. But if you're going to be more comfortable and you need to be able to downshift and things like that to change, absolutely. In my experience, I've seen some employers have socials at restaurants and things like that, and they recommend dressing down. So definitely consider your audience and where you're going to be. But what you're going to be most comfortable in is always recommended for sure.
And then there's nothing wrong with like asking an employer of like, so is this event business casual? Is it casual? Should we come suited and booted? They'll let you know, right? Because they also are like, they'll also be most likely in their most chill form. Socials are really an opportunity for folks to, in the same like you all are on as like candidates, like employers have been on all day as well.
Yep.
So socials are kind of like the like chill moments of like, all right, I'm done asking the like the interview questions, but more an opportunity for folks to get to know each other outside of that interview setting, the more formal interview setting, I should say, because socials are still kind of like interviews a little bit. But yeah, feel free to ask, but also don't feel as though you have to bust your butt to get to change or anything like that. So, but if you also are prepared to pull out the outfits, I definitely was the one who had the interview day outfit and the social outfit. Work your magic. I support it. Do you? There was another. Oh, go ahead, Rob.
I would say we have a question that was submitted through the
registration form.
Yeah, the Google form as well. And that question is pretty much asking, what does a typical day / schedule look like?
That's up to you.
Yeah, I think it's really
No,
it's really up to the candidate.
The candidate.
It's really a typical day is really up to the candidate, and what you want your day to look like. Similar to how we've talked about making sure that you're putting breaks in for your lunches, putting in breaks for like just time to meditate, regroup, refocus, recharge. It's all about what spaces you have available on your schedule, because employers can only schedule when you don't have a break on your schedule. So if you want back-to-back schedule interviews, then that's your choice. But if you want to have some of those breaks in between, you're able to put in breaks to where employers can't schedule you back-to-back, or maybe a couple back-to-back, but put in your breaks so the employers can see that you at least have something blocked off on your schedule, to where they can't schedule until the next open space on your schedule. So really, it's up to you and what you're into.
I agree.
Good questions that are coming up. Bailey, were you about to say something?
You're good.
Okay. So some of them being prompted by the question you just asked, Rob. I want to get back to one question that was still around attire. And so for our TPE Academy workshop folks, so if you had the privilege of being accepted to TPE Academy, there is a workshop that folks will be attending. It happens to be you. We do ask that you wear business casual just to kind of get you in the frame of mind for what the next days are going to be, but also we still want you to be comfortable. So like whatever business casual means to you, do that. So.
I do want to add on to that real quick. I was told by a mentor when I was going through TPE to never show up to the convention center or the TPE or the interview hall not prepared for an interview. So you may be running into an employer, or you may be checking your mailbox one last time on your way out in your scrubs, ready to get on a plane, and you see an employer and you're like, I didn't want them to see me like this. So again, making sure you're thinking of who you're seeing, who you're going to run into, kind of a thing when you are entering the convention center and the interview hall as well. You kind of want to be prepared for who you're going to see and make sure you're comfortable or you are ready for that interview.
So there's a question around, so if you were to go have back-to-back interviews and socials, which we do not recommend, we will talk on site, on site and on site. But what is the chance there will be food, or should we prepare for getting a very quick dinner or eating after? Good question. So TPE does not provide food during the on-site event. There are a couple of different like kind of break periods that happen throughout on-site where we provide like coffee and tea and those types of like lemonade and those types of things. However, you are on your own when it comes to any type of food items. And so like, as Rob mentioned earlier, like definitely recommended for you to pack some snacks as you are interviewing throughout the day. But we also encourage you all to make sure you're scheduling lunch breaks throughout your time at TPE, so you will have time to be able to go eat. At socials, they differ. It depends on the institution. Some schools go all out, and some places are kind of like, welcome, here you go, have some water, have a cookie, right? And so Again, plan your schedule so that you are able to take care of yourself, like with actual nourishment. Schools actually don't typically start until about 7 o'clock or so, those evenings. And so if you know that you want to be done with interviews by 5 o'clock that day, you can block your schedule out to say done with interviews, and then you can also use that time to go eat, change clothes, take a nap if you like, whatever makes most sense to you. So yeah, anything anybody else want to add to that before going to the next question? Okay, cool. And then another question is around the number of interviews to have on a daily basis. And so how to manage like the free time you have, but also not having enough interviews. And so some folks, this person talked about having their mentor having 25 when they went. Again, it is like you have to be okay with that decision in the end. My recommendation is when coming into TPE, you should know what you are looking for in an institution, in a role, all of those different things. And so we recognize that folks get really excited by the opportunities that when employers reach out to folks about scheduling an interview with them. But if you know that as an institution or a job that you do not want, do not waste your time and do not waste the interviewer's time. And so part of that is really you taking the time to know what you are looking for as you are not like entering into TPE on site, right? And so I would say when I participated in TPE, I interviewed with I think I may have interviewed with about 12 to 15 institutions, which then totaled to me having about like 25-ish or so interviews the entire time. So that included my first rounds, my second rounds, if I had any third rounds, things like that, right? And so I would suggest you more so having a target number of institutions, and then know that interviews can vary based off of how the institutions are conducting interviews. And so some institutions, they do like screening and first round interviews before TPE. Some do like first round interviews right on site. And so it differs, but please, 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 we really don't want you feeling as though you have to interview with 30 plus interviews, and those are just first rounds, right? Like we recognize the anxiety that comes with job searching, and we want you to be successful. But having all of those interviews, for me as an employer, but then also someone who's gone through this process, at least shows to me that you haven't done your due diligence in thinking about what you are hoping for at the end of your job search experience. So really take the time to think about, like, sometimes saying no is okay. Thinking about what you want as a result of this job search. And then when it even comes down to, because I see a follow-up question to that or a follow-up comment was the number of on-campuses that are offered afterwards, right? Like, don't feel as though like the number of offers that you receive will dictate where you go in your search or how successful your search is. And so really wanting you to feel as though you can make decisions that make most sense to you and what feels right. Not just solely based off of quantity. We really want you to have a quality experience, and you need to put in quality work to help get you that quality experience that you want. So that's me. I dropped the mic. I stepped down from the platform. I can have conversations with y'all all day about interview scheduling and all of that. If you want to talk on site about it, let's do it. But if I pull up y'all schedules and see y'all got from 40 plus interviews, we is having a conversation. I'm not playing no games.
I'll be right behind you, Kirby. You're doing great.
Cool. There was one question too about, do you have any advice on how to approach the job fair portion of TPE? Good question. Y'all want me to take this since I have most insight about kind of what it is?
Sure.
Okay, cool. All right, so this is actually something new that we are doing this year. And so think of it honestly as it's like a really big social. And so there's nothing wrong with you going up to institutions that, let's say, you may be interested in interviewing with, or let's say you know peers at or folks at other institutions, just as a way to reconnect. Really is just an opportunity to provide like an informal space for folks to connect with others before TPE like officially starts the next day. And so my recommendation would be, for example, if there are some places that you may have just saw a job posting for that meet your qualifications and the and whatnot, and what you're looking for in a position, really encourage you to have like go up and say hello. I just saw your posting on the website the other day. Would be interested potentially in interviewing. I have a few questions that I would love to ask you, and those are kind of some of the questions that can be some of your more informal like type of questions about like the institution, like what it's like to live in a particular area, things along those lines. And so that's an opportunity that you could use during the like job fair portion. And then also just use that to connect with other candidates, right? While your journeys are not the same and your trajectories aren't the same, you are all participating in a communal experience. And so we want you to be able to take part in that community. This is one of the best ways of being able to fellowship with folks within the profession that brings so many folks together over a short span of time that allows you to be able to have to leave with some lasting connections that we hope would last a lifetime. And so I think back to my search to this day and how I'm still connected with some folks, some candidates who also were going through that experience too. So use it as an opportunity too to make friends, get to know others, support one another, lift each other up. Because when I think about this concept of self-care, really it's about us care. And so I'm not sure if anybody has heard of that term before, but us care, Dr. D.L. Stewart does some work with us care, and it really places an emphasis on how do we care for each other as well as ourselves. And so we can't do this work alone, and we have to acknowledge the various systems and things that are in place that sometimes makes it hard for us to take care of ourselves, but how do we also hold each other accountable to that self-care? And so I challenge everybody on this call and folks who are attending TPE to think about us care and how we take care of each other to be able to thrive and just do good work throughout our time together. So. Any other questions? Bailey, y'all got other stuff to say?
What's that?
So y'all got other stuff to say?
I think that's it. Mike, we did it. Y'all are ready. You can do it.
Cool. And then we will be having one last, at least before TPE on site, we'll be having one last virtual engagement session for just kind of some like final reminders, some things to consider bringing for TPE and things like that. So join us on March, is that the 18th? I think it's the 18th. Yes, it is according to my calendar. So yeah, join us on March 18th at 7:30 p.m. EST, and we'll kind of do one last Q&A for any other things that you all want to talk about related to be on site. And then we'll see you all in Austin. Actually 3 weeks. Well, y'all won't be there yet, but we'll see y'all within. So yeah.
So soon.
Yeah.
So soon.
And in the meantime, if you are looking for some additional tips and things for TPE, we are also showing different webinars every week. So this week you can see Resume 101, where there's a webinar that talks about building your resume. We're also currently showing what TPE can do for you, for those of you who are still figuring out that role of TPE. And then there'll be some more additional webinars. So if you're following us on social media, you would definitely be able to see those posts through the TPE, through the Placement Exchange Instagram page and Facebook page. So if you're not following us, it's a good time to follow us because you can see those things that are posted weekly leading up into TPE.
Hashtag TPE 2020.
Huh?
Hashtag TPE 2020.
Yep.
And then we also are taking, since we're doing announcements, we're also taking submissions for roundtable, brown bag roundtable discussion topics. So we just recently sent out a newsletter the other day requesting those. And so if there's a particular topic that you would like to discuss while on site and you want to break bread with some other candidates, as well as some seasoned practitioners in the field, feel free to submit some ideas to the Google form that we have. And so whether it be like engaging in a dialogue about like navigating like student activism as a practitioner on campuses, or if you want to talk about like working Black while insert identity. So for me, it would be working while Black queer woman at whatever, right? And so those are things that we're hoping to be able to discuss, right? Because those are still things that are very important and impact the work that we do. And so we want to provide space to be able for folks to be able to talk about it. So there are ideas or things that come to mind. We would love to hear your ideas so we can make sure that they happen while on site. So.
Any final questions? What else called for? All right. Thanks y'all for joining us.
Thank y'all. Y'all are the best. Y'all are great.
See you at TPE. Actually, see you on the next webinar.